Boker Tov, we are in Kohelet Perek Aleph, Pasuk Tet Zayin. Says Shlomo HaMelech, Dibarti ani im libi lemor. I spoke to my heart, saying, Ani hine higdalti vehosafti chokhmah. Behold, I became great, and the Mefarshim say, wealthy. Vehosafti chokhmah, and I became very, very knowledgeable. I kept on adding wisdom to my wisdom. We know Shlomo HaMelech was the wisest of all men, and there's a discussion if more wiser than Moshe, not as wise as Moshe. Al kol asher haya lefanai al Yerushalayim. I was more wiser than anyone that was before me in Yerushalayim. The Mitzvot David says, he's not talking about his father, because his father was before him. He doesn't want to talk about, but he was talking about everybody else besides his father. V'libi ra'ah harbe chokhmah v'dat. My heart saw much knowledge in the world. We're going to continue with the next pasuk in a moment, but Mefarshim here say, chokhmah bina v'dat. We say this often. So the Sefer Talmud Chokhmah says, chokhmah is what you've learned from your rabbis, learning that you've acquired. Dat, knowledge, is in order to explain that knowledge. It's not just in your mind, but you're able to explain it. I remember in yeshiva many times, the rabbis would say, if you can't explain it, it means you didn't understand it. Right? So if you say, oh, you understood? Yeah, okay, explain. Oh, no, you didn't understand it. If you can't explain, you didn't understand. And then, Bina, he says, is what you've now explained, that now as a thing in the world, that you've explained, that piece of Chokhmah, that can be now, learned from, that can be taken to the next level, and that's Bina. So Shlomo HaMelech says, I learned so much wisdom. And then it says the next pasuk, I really put my heart in learning wisdom. V'dat holelut v'sichlut. I put my heart in learning wisdom, like good wisdom, as Rashi says, the Torah, and I also put dat holelut v'sichlut. I put time in understanding and putting wisdom in people that waste their time. Shimum, boredom, and irbuv is mixed up things, and sichlut is like shtut says Rashi. And I put my mind in that as well, to see what the outcome is. Yadati shegam zeh hu rayon ruach. And I came out with that this is also things of the wind. These, laziness, mixed up, shtuyot, joking around. It's at the end, it goes with the wind. There's nothing much there. Now Rashi says a point here from the word yadati. I know that this is also rayon ruach. Yadati, Shlomo, what you were also in the camp of laziness, mixed up, shtuyot. You're Shlomo HaMelech. Says Rashi an amazing thing. Yadati, I knew. He explains as follows. He says that Shlomo HaMelech, we know that, we can't talk about the great, but our rabbis tell us, and we see from Pesukim, a little bit of a mistake was that when the Torah says that a person or king should not have many horses, Shlomo HaMelech said, okay, but I could control myself with that. And the Torah says, because you might go back down to Egypt. Meaning the greatest horses, I think even till today, stem from Egyptian horses. So if a person is into horses, they're going to go back to Egypt. And we're not supposed to go back to Egypt. Also, if a person has many wives, then they could stray you from the right path. I'm Shlomo HaMelech. I'm okay with that. And he had this whole logic of, let me take princesses, convert them from other nations, and then bring everyone under Hashem. But that also ended up being a failure. So Rashi explains here, when Shlomo HaMelech says, Yadati, I know that this is wrong because I went through this. And Rashi explains that he says that you can't outsmart the Torah. Meaning, as smart as you are, if Hashem says this is allowed or this is not allowed, don't say outsmart, say, oh, it's not allowed because of this and this and this. But I know why, for me, I'll be okay with it. No. If it's not allowed, it's not allowed. As the Sefer Kohelet Yirmiyah here that we learn, it takes it to the next level, as Sefer Yeshaya says, Lo machshevotai machshevotechem. My thinking, says Hashem, is not your thinking. Meaning, don't think that I give you a commandment and now you know all the angles and reasons of the commandment. And therefore, if it doesn't apply to you, now I could do this. No. If it's not allowed, Don't try to outsmart the system. He explains that there's many mitzvot that we wouldn't get to on our own. We can't get to the nth level, the last level, knowing all of Hashem's reasons for every mitzvah. That's the explanation here. And he gives an example. He says, the Torah tells us, let's say a person acquires an Evet Ivri. If you buy a Jewish servant, so you think, a servant, a slave, I can do whatever I want with him. The Gemara tells us, hold on a second, if you acquire a servant for yourself, it's like you're acquiring a master on yourself. Why? The Gemara explains, if you only have one pillow, you have to give it to him. If you only have a certain amount of food, you got to feed him first. And so many things that mean you think, what? I'm buying an Eved. I own this guy. Let me do whatever I want with him. Let me treat him however I want. If I have one pillow, I'm using it. No. Lo machshavotay machshavotachem. Halacha is it's a rehabilitation. You have to treat him well. You have to make him, you never would have thought that. And therefore, that's just one example of things that it wouldn't have crossed our mind. And therefore, when we have the mitzvot, we have to make sure to adhere to the mitzvot, not to try to outsmart. And this is what Rashi tells us that Shlomo HaMelech is admitting to, that a little bit, because if you remember, the beginning of Kohelet is Shlomo HaMelech writes this at the end of his life. He's reflecting now on his whole life. I learned a lot of wisdom, etc. And yadati, I know on my own flesh, says Rashi to explain this, that you can't outsmart the Torah. As smart as you are, therefore Hashem says it's allowed, this is not allowed. Take it fully, do Hashem's will, not to outsmart, and then you'll be blessed to be on the proper path. Amen. Ve'amer v'chananya ben HaKashem Retzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'zakot et Yisrael leficha chiyba lem Torah v'zah shenemar Adonai chavetz man tzidko v'dil Torah v'yadir.